All right, my guest today is Jeff Kinney. He is the author of the wildly popular Diary of a Wimpy Kid series of children's books, of which my son Joey is a huge fan. Jeff has been named one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people in the world. His latest book in the series, The Long Haul, hit bookshelves earlier this month. It is a pleasure to welcome to the program Jeff Kinney. Jeff, how you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me.
So for those who, have probably heard of the books, but maybe they don't know about them, can you just give us a little bit of background on just what they're all about?
Sure. Diary of a Wimpy Kid's about a middle school weakling named Greg Heffley. And the stories are, they're kind of unusual in their presentation. They're a hybrid of text and images, so really text and cartoons specifically.
I got to ask you, the character of Greg Heffley, is Greg Heffley really Jeff Kinney or vice versa? Is the character somewhat autobiographical?
In some ways, the character is me in disguise, but I think Greg Heffley is a really exaggerated version of myself. I took all of my worst points as a person, as a kid and as an adult, and sort of just amplified them.
Yeah, because I was wondering, because, Greg gets into some pretty crazy situations throughout the entire series, and just wondered if any of those were, real-life situations that you've ever encountered.
I think almost everything that's happened in the books has had some kernel of truth or started with some true story and then got, twisted and put through the fiction blender. So that's how I develop my ideas.
Well, your latest book in the series, it's a little bit different than the previous books, The Long Haul. In The Long Haul, where do we find the Heffley family?
For the first time ever, I take the Heffleys out of their home environment and, I put them on the road, which is kind of funny because now I'm on a road trip. Promoting this book and sitting in the front of a big bus, so it's my worlds are sort of coming together at the same time.
And how's your road trip going right now?
It's going great. We just drove by Springfield, Massachusetts, so we're getting to see a lot of the northeastern United States, and we're going into Canada today, or in the next few days, actually.
Well, I love that you have the Heffleys on a family road trip this time around, because we all have those memories from our childhood of being, stuck in the back seat for 10 hours at a time. And I know you flipping through the book, I was immediately taken back to, those memories of driving to Ohio to visit my grandparents or, our family trip to Niagara Falls. Do you have any one particular childhood vacation that stood out to you when you were writing this book?
Yeah, we drove to Florida more than once, from Maryland down to Florida to go to Disney World. And, I remember it felt a little bit disastrous at the time. There were all sorts of mishaps and car problems and forgotten items that we had to double back for and all sorts of things that most families have to go through.
Oh, yeah, of course. Well, my understanding is, reading a little bit about you, this whole children's book thing, it wasn't exactly what you set out to do. Now, initially, you were looking to publish a newspaper comic strip, right?
That's right. My hope was, coming out of college, I'd become a newspaper cartoonist, and the problem was I just didn't have the talent to pull it off. My illustrations weren't good enough, and newspapers were really starting to decline, so my opportunities were very, very limited. So I decided to come up with this concept to take me out of newspapers and get my cartoons into books, and that's where Diary of a Wimpy Kid was born. And
it was originally published on the Internet, right?
It was. I started releasing it on Funbrain, website for kids, actually, in 2004. And I wrote for about 2 years and then finally showed it to somebody, a sample packet of about 12 pages at New York Comic Con, and that's how my official published career started.
Well, could you have ever imagined at the time that this would turn into the phenomenon it's become?
I never thought that in my wildest dreams that I'd get to have this level of success and have so many books in print. I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop and for this to be over. But right now it feels pretty good going around the country and meeting thousands of kids. I want to pinch myself. I feel like I'm on the Truman Show.
Well, this weekend, our family, we stopped into a Barnes & Noble, and, it seems like everywhere you turn in that store, there's some sort of big display for Wimpy Kid and The Long Haul. So, what's it like to go into a store and, see all that merchandising all over the place, the toys, everything else. Not to mention the movies. So far now you've got 3 films based on the series. What is it like to see your work become a big part of pop culture like that?
It's very cool. During my presentation, I always show Charlie Brown, and I talked about kids boy cartoon characters who are bald or nearly bald, and I think, maybe one day kids will look back and think of how Greg Heffley was a part of their childhood. Maybe he'll become iconic over time. Right now, I'm sort of wondering, is this a flavor of the day, or is this going to last? So I'm doing everything I can to make it last.
Well, I mean, it's going 10 years strong now, so I mean that's a pretty good, I think, insight into how it's being perceived and how it will be perceived in the future. I mentioned the movies. Now that's how our family was introduced, to the series. My son and I went. Regal Cinema does their Summer Movie Express thing, and they have family movies every week, and they were showing the Dog Days movie, and my son and I, we went. We just couldn't stop laughing, and he was completely hooked. So I mean, it really they're great movies, they're great books. But are there any other plans for another movie based on the series?
I'm really hoping we get to turn the new book into a movie. That's my dream, is to turn this road trip into the next Wimpy Kid movie. But that's outside of my control. That's going to be determined by Fox. But I think that would be really neat to see the characters, away from the middle school environment and out in the wide world.
Well, Jeff, what do you think it is about these books that have made them so endearing and so relatable to the audience, especially to the kids who read them?
I think the reason the books work is the same reason that the Judy Blume books worked in the 1970s and 80s. They're just ordinary stories. There's nothing supernatural about the stories. Every kid can relate to the characters in my books. They can see Greg Heffley in themselves.
My guest has been Jeff Kinney. His latest Diary of a Wimpy Kid book, The Long Haul, is on the shelves now. Jeff, I want to thank you for taking the time. And real quick, before you go, I wanted to ask you if we could do something a little different than I normally do. Again, I mentioned that my son is an absolute huge fan of the series, right? His name is Joey. And when he found out I was talking to you today, he really wanted to be here. And he's got a couple questions. Would you mind if he asked you a couple questions of his own?
Sure. That'd be great.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to him right now.
Okay, cool. Hey, Joey.
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. I love all your books, and I read them all.
That's awesome, Joey. Thank you so much. I hope you like the new one. Have you read the new one yet?
Yeah, I'm reading it now.
Oh, good. Do you like it so far?
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, thank you so much for being a fan. It means a lot to me. I'm ready for your questions.
What was your favorite book when you were a kid?
I think my favorite book when I was a kid was one called Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing by Judy Blume. It was about an ordinary kid who had a little brother.
Oh, all right. Other than Diary of a Wimpy Kid, what other work have you done?
I haven't written anything else, but I have worked on a website called Poptropica. In fact, that's my day job. It's a big online virtual world.
Oh, what's it about?
It's a virtual world where you create a character and then you travel between islands and you go on quests. So it's really fun, actually. You should check it out.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you most of all for being a fan. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care, bud.
Hey, thanks so much, Jeff.
Hey, thank you. Talk to you later down the road.
You got it. Take care and have a safe road trip.
Thank you very much. All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.